Welcome to Up Close and Personal with your boy Thesis. Now real quick, my ninja kitties, what the fuck makes a good pod system? And I figured I'd delve into this whilst we're doing the Mino review as we speak. Today we've got the Mino by Coil art, and it is something of a conundrum for me. I haven't seen something like this used in years. When I say something, I mean the actual wicking material, silica. So before we begin, I want to give a huge shout out to the sponsor of the channel, Podjuice, podjuice55.com. Coupon code Thesis15 to get yours for 15% off. This is my personal pick. Jewel Mint is my hands down #1 favorite. Now, first things first, we do got the box. This is the Mino right here. Rechargeable, adorable device. Now, the first complaint that I'm going to give Coil art right here, right out of the bat, is you only get one pod. Biggest pet peeve, in my opinion, for me, is going to be simply send out 2 pods. I'll give you a good example, the DV by Anakin, one of my favorites right now. This did get sent out with 2 pods, and then on top of that, I purchased more of them. Something like this pisses me off. As Vape Touch, this one was sent out used by Element Vapor, which is bullshit. I cannot believe that they sent out used products. These are not my fingerprints on this device. Now, this is just kind of a side rant, has nothing to do with the Mino, but I'm just giving you guys a heads up. This was not wrapped, it was not sealed, and this does have clearly fingerprints previously used. Again, not mine. Now, with that being said, inside of this, we got, of course, our cable. Now, this one is going to be I think it's a braided steel one. Yes. Beautiful Coil art cable as per usual. Braided steel. Got a couple of notches in it, but that's not a big deal. And of course, at the bottom, we have this refillable unicorn bottle. So I do like the fact that that was included with it. QC pass right here, quality control. And then your instructions are on the top flap in the user manual section right there. Simple as that. The cool part about the Mino specifically is that it matches the Lux 200 watt by Coil art, which is a great mod. It's actually one of my favorite mods. I just love that fucking thing. Granted, it is glass on the outside. Or not glass, but it does break like glass. Every time I dropped it, it's shattered even more. See that? Shattered on top of shatteredness. I do have another one of these bad boys to give away that's brand new in the box coming up this Thursday. Hawkeyes, my ninjas. Now, my experience with this by itself, stock from the factory, I would give it a 6.5 to a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10. After I did the vape pack, after I re-wicked it with my own cotton, it's now an 8 to an 8.5. The performance of the silica that comes in this device is not great. It's just not my favorite. There's a reason why we stopped using silica years ago. If you're unfamiliar with what silica is, it's essentially a wicking material that's being used in the industry, 2013, 2014, literally just as cotton. And it basically disappears. It's kind of crazy how once it gets wet, you can no longer see that it's there. But it doesn't tend to wick as nicely as something like fluffed cotton or cotton that's specifically woven to be used with vaping. Now, it is a 13 watt device and the pods themselves are 1.3 to 1.4 ohms. That would seem like it's enough power. With the silica, it doesn't seem like it is. Let me go and take a puff once. That was actually a solid hit. Let me go do it again. Yeah, much more wispy. It tends to be up and down. Sometimes I'll get a good hit, but most of the time it's just not as powerful as I want it to be. I'll give you a perfect example. The Anakin DV that I've been using at 12 watts hits way harder than this does at 13. Now, the biggest complaint I got with the magnet system, with the whole system in general, is that little do people realize that this is basically a Zoer clone. Again, it looks nothing like a Zoer in terms of when you first look at it. Take a look at this right here. This is the Enjoy Ace. The Enjoy Ace is another Zoer clone. Let me go and grab the original Zoer once. Now, here's the original Zoer. The original Zoer has essentially reshaped the entire industry, and I mean that literally. The entire industry seems to be coming out with pods that are really similar to the Zoer. They basically made what I called an almost perfect pod system. Granted, it's a closed pod system, but look at the similarities between the three. You cannot tell me that this wasn't based off of the Zoer. It just was. We are in an industry where design is rewarded. The biggest problem with that is that someone will design a winning mod, and then there's like 20 other companies that just go right behind them and clone them, and then just tweak it just a little bit to say it's their own. That in and of itself is disappointing. I would have liked to see this in ceramic, just because I'm curious on how it would perform, especially at 13 watts. But with that being said, it's not a bad setup. The LED at the bottom is nice and bright. You can see it whilst you're using it. The magnets on the pods themselves are actually extremely strong. I'm super impressed with the magnets. The biggest downfall in terms of the magnets and the fitment is that this is wiggly. To me, that's unacceptable. Why the fuck am I going to have a pod system? Every time I use it, I can feel it wiggling around in my mouth like a fucking worm. Shit is gross. Shit is weird. Look at this. You expect people to pay $30 or whatever the cost is for a pod system where the reservoir just wiggles around. Look at this. Listen to this. That shouldn't happen. Same thing with the red one. Untouched, unmodified. Yes, it is held in by magnets, but at the same time, you look at this, here's the Enjoy Ace, none of that. None of the wiggliness. Listen, Zoer, identical situation. Nothing. It is clicked, it is locked in place. Same thing in terms of magnets, but the fitment is correct. This type of shit is indicative of a company slacking, in my humble opinion. It's 320 milliamp hour. That's not a lot of battery life, especially once I've gotten used to something like this. This is my personal favorite pod system right now. The Pavino Puro as well as the Inikin DV, much higher milliamp hour. This thing can last virtually all day without any issues. I've gone all the way from the morning all the way to the next evening, not being used as my sole mod, but being used as almost a secondary, sitting in my pocket and whatnot. Let's go ahead and take a hit of this bad boy. Good God. Hawkeyes. Now, if you take a look at the bottom, they did take their time on some of the things like connection. They are gold plated. The draw activation firing mechanism is fine. It's basically just your regular pressure switch. All pressure switches are fine, but they do come with that risk of either auto firing or getting something stuck inside of the pressure switch chamber itself and not being able to fire. And of course, the Mino is made by a fairly reputable company, Coil Art. They do have a solid set of protection levels in here. Everything from the short circuit protection, the overtime protection, all that kind of good stuff, which is what you want to see in a pod system. We are asking companies to do a lot with something that's so small. All of that stuff being put into a chip, and then on top of that, solid battery life, and of course, perfect flavor production. All of that stuff into one is a lot to ask for, specifically for a $30 product. Other companies are doing it. There's no reason why Coil Art or anybody else can't. The reservoir itself does say 2 milliliters. I was able to get roughly 1.8 after the coil has been soaked. And on the bottom, we do have micro USB port sitting right there. I kind of wish there was a cover. I'm actually starting to slowly come around to the fact that I like micro USB, of course, but at the same time, I'm starting to like the fact that certain companies put covers on their USBs. A perfect example is the Lost Vape DNA Go version. This one is not. This is the Q, and this one is wide open. I've started to notice when I'm working in the shop, especially around metal or sawdust, I tend to get a lot of debris inside of the micro USB port, and that's not something that everyone's going to run into on a daily basis, but for people like me or people like myself who work with their hands, installing windows, doing decks, carpentry, any of that kind of stuff, that is a problem. That does come up. That is the first time I've ever complained about that. I've only noticed it lately, and it's not a huge issue, but when it does turn up, it sucks, because then I have to go with the air compressor and a tiny piece of metal or a tiny piece of like paper clip and stuff and dig it out, which of course is not something you should be doing with anything connected to a battery. The colors that they do have for it are beautiful. They have blue, green, red, and of course black. They do all match the Lux mod right here, which is kind of dope. I wish they sent out a green one. That'd be an awesome matching set. Bitch, it's okay. Some other truckers. Now with that being said, let's go and get back to regular view, son. Now my final summation is this. The Coil Art Mino is adorable. Here's the thing, is I can't help but see kind of where they got their lineage from. It looks to me a lot like the Zur or the Enjoy Ace, and there's a bunch of other ones that are named after that. It seems like the Zur is probably the most cloned pod system I've ever fucking seen. I like the way that it comes. It's this is the original pod right here with the silica. Not a huge fan of silica. I mean, we used that years ago. There's a reason why we stopped. It doesn't wick as fast as it wanted to, nor does it hit as hard as it wanted to. Listen, Linda, watch. Wait for it. Such a common problem amongst all these pod systems. Not all of them, but many of them. But here's the one that I rewicked with your regular standard cotton that you would use for rewicking a coil, you know, on an RDA or RTA. Watch the difference on the first hit. This is a cold coil. Look at that. Smaller amount of cotton in a larger diameter coil. This fucking thing hits beautifully. Now, if they could replicate that in their actual standard coils, I would be happy to use this tank. I would be happy to use this whole setup. The thing is that, again, 2 mils of liquid, it's solid, that's good for what it is, but that drainage, the battery drainage still does not, it doesn't equal a real throat hit for me. I wish the Mino had a little bit more power. And if you're paying 30 bucks for a fucking pod system, you can get adjustability. This DV was $23 on Element Vapor. Now, I don't necessarily love Element Vapor. I'm ordering from them only because they have cheaper fucking prices, but this is also the kind of shit that you're gonna expect from Element Vapor. I'm just saying in comparison, when you look at the Mino, it looks pretty. It does that job, no problem. Look at the DV, it looks fucking cool, but I'm comparing the both in a similar price range. The only dope part about the Mino that I like the most, the best part about it, is that I can rewick it. Now, the problem with having to rewick it is the fact that I have to rewick it in order to get a satisfactory vape from it. It should just come satisfying out of the box. I shouldn't have to fuck with shit on a pod system in order to get a satisfactory vape. It's that simple. For your price, do I recommend the Mino? No, I just don't. Simple as that. Not that I have anything against coil art. I fucking love the Lux 200. This mod right here, I will be giving away one of these bad boys this coming Thursday on the Patreon page, brand new in the box. But aside from that, I just feel like they can come up with their own design. Zooer, I feel like, is taking a beating in terms of getting cloned. To the point where I fucking feel bad for Zooer. Coil art, y'all have got enough money and resources to design your own shit. Bitch, it's okay, Smother Truckers. Know what? Thesis is patented finger compatibility scale for pod systems. I'm gonna start being super harsh with pod systems because there's so many of them out there. I'm gonna give it a 6. End of sentence. When you rewick the coils, I'll give it a 7.5, creeping up on an 8 depending on how thick of a throw hit or how harsh of a throw hit that you want. For me, I want as harsh of a throw hit as I can possibly get. I want to be deep throating a fucking sword with prickly pears on the end of it. I want to fucking feel like there's a cactus in the back of my throat. That's why I like my 16 milligram menthol. Love that shit. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for taking the time watching this video. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, comment below. What do you think about pod systems in this price range not having adjustability? Bitch, it's okay, Smother Truckers. Now with that being said, I want to tell you that I appreciate you for vaping with Thesis. It is your boy Thesis. I'm out.